Okay. Hi guys, how are you? Welcome again to Laugh Lines and Turbulence with Deb and Gina. And today, you guys, our special guest is Gina. Gina, the author of Burnt Gloveboxes, and now soon to publish her second book, Burnt Gloveboxes, Volume
Yep.
2. So, Gina, what a great like a synchronicity here for you to for us to have this interview with you at the same time that Burnt Glove Boxes 2 is coming out and about to be published. So let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I just found out my published date today. So,
Okay.
so the goal was to publish this year. We had to table it a little further out because we are actually, so this is the second half to the first book. So Burnt Glove Boxes Embracing Life When It Goes Up in Flames is just a bunch of short essays of Murphy's Law crap that's happened to myself and my family, and then now the
Mhm.
second one, other people. So we have a few stories from other people in the second one. But January 22nd, folks, we're so excited, but we're gearing up. We're going to take that and we're going to make it into a full-blown anthology similar to
Mhm.
Chicken Soup for the Soul, but with Murphy's Law stories instead of inspirational stories. So yeah, we need time to get all that software all set up and ready to go for our first anthology that will spin off of the first two books. So yeah.
We're so super excited for you. Everybody's so super excited for you. And what a great, I love how you find the funny in the mishaps because it happens to all of us. Mishaps happen to all of us. And, the funny thing was like, if it can happen to Gina, I mean, if it can happen to anyone, it'll happen to Gina. If it can
Oh
happen, it'll
yeah.
happen to Gina. But and a lot of us feel that way too. So I love how your stories are just so relatable to real life. And you're reading Burnt Glove Boxes, the first one, is they're just everyday things that you I love the way you explained it, the way you put humor in it. Your stories were hilarious, and
Oh,
how you got the title. So tell everyone kind of how you got that title, because when I read that part of your book, I couldn't believe that actually happened.
yeah.
That just blew my mind.
Yeah, so we moved to Wisconsin, and things happened when we still lived in Illinois, but what it seemingly when we moved to Wisconsin, like it was always something that would be happening. Just the most bizarre stuff. Sometimes poor choices are in there, a few poor choices, but it's still like laughing with those things. So through the years, I would just tell people these stories, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you should write a book." And I kept thinking, "Yeah, that would be really awesome to have all these in a book." And then one day we went as a family. Our son was going to be in a basketball tournament in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and so we were. He took the bus with his team, and we were lagging behind. And so we drove out there, my husband and I and our daughter Katie. I'm trying to think. I think Jackie was with us too. All of our kids, both of our kids, and then Mike was on the bus. So we go into the game, we come out, I'm talking to the coach to tell him we're taking Mike home with us. And I walk over to the car and the kids are standing outside the car. And I opened the passenger side door and I was just wafted with this horrible, like burning smoke smell. And Paul's laying across, it's one of them seats, the long seats. He's
Mhm.
laying across the seat. He's holding all the contents, not all the papers and stuff, like the whole like insert of the glove box. He's holding it. And he's like, I said, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "The smoke was billowing." So like it was like smoking, and we had no idea why. I'm not going to do a spoiler, but we did find out why it was burning the glove box. And so we're driving home and I'm like, "Oh my, like, how does this happen to us? Like, this is
Mhm.
craziness."
Mhm.
And at that moment, I thought that's the title for the book, because that burnt glove box encompassed all the stories that
That's
that ever happened, and that were stories that were going to happen, because they are going to happen.
funny.
So
But it's a great story. So I can't wait. Yeah, like you
yeah,
said, no spoiler alert. But I can't wait till people can read it because it really every story you have in that book just like totally like it just I just can't I couldn't believe it until I know that it actually happened to you. So it's pretty. Another question. Let's see here. We wanted to talk about was when you started to get interested in writing because you really flourished into such a phenomenal writer and you're
oh,
so
thank you.
talented. So yeah, no, of course, you're so gifted, so talented in so many things. And when did you really felt oh as when did you really feel like I'm a writer? Like this is my thing. This is what I want to do. I really want to put this out there.
Yeah. So through the years so after I came up with the title, I sat down at my computer and I typed up all the titles for the stories. And then I printed that off. That was the stories I had up until then. And that was probably, well, at this point, probably about 27, 28 years ago. And I carried these titles, these two pieces of paper stapled in a manila folder that said Burnt Gloveboxes on it. I wrote that in marker, and I carried that around with me everywhere I went. And then I would add story titles to it. I knew that, so I love doing art and stuff. I knew that writing, like telling a story and writing a story, are two different things.
Mm,
Because you when you're telling the story, you have the influx in your voice and you have the type of thing, which you have to pull that out in the writing to have the reader be able to visualize what's happening.
mhm,
So using the senses and all of that. Um, so I started writing the book during NaNoWriMo, which is a November writing month. The goal is to write a novel in the month of November. And I had a good
mhm,
friend. She told me about this, knowing that I wanted to write this book. And so I thought, well, it was free to do. It's just they give you like little points, you put in your word count, everything. So I thought, well, why not? I'll do this. Um, I didn't know I was a writer. Um, so I did this during the month of November. I didn't finish the book in the month of November. Some people do finish it.
mhm,
Um, but it gave me a really good starting point and motivation to keep going. And then I submitted my transcript to my publisher, Highlander Press, for review. Just a few stories. She wanted to take a look and see if it's something that they'd be interested in
mhm.
publishing. And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know, like, when I did my meeting with her, if she would say, never write again, don't ever pick up a pen again. you know, um, I,
But you
I,
must have been very anxious, just waiting to find out what they
so
thought.
it was such a vulnerable position to be in.
Yeah, I
Um,
bet.
and then she's, told me that my stories really reminded her a lot of Irma Bombeck,
Mm,
like her kind of spin on things and my writing. And I thought, well, wow, that's a great compliment.
yeah.
Um, so yeah. And I don't know, I think that with writing, um, it's a skill like any other kind of art.
Mhm,
It's an art, being able to,
yeah.
I mentioned to you before, painting with words.
Right.
And so so I feel like as writers, we're always evolving and we're always like trying to learn and taking more classes.
Mhm,
Going back to your question, um, I just found something that I was going through a box that of my parents, and it has some of my mom's stuff and my dad's stuff in it. And I pulled out, my dad had had a heart attack when I was in eighth grade,
mhm,
and he had written a book. And it's like little, and it's not a book. It's not in book form. He never
mhm,
published it. but he drew the picture of the heart on the front. And I
Oh,
remember asking me at age 14 to edit his book. And
oh,
I found his version and I didn't write on his version and I found my version
hmm
there. And I thought, wow, that's kind of crazy. Um, that maybe my dad felt that like I had that talent in me back then.
hmm
I don't know. Yeah, but I just found that through writing, through this process, I found a love for writing. And then I started taking classes and learning about structure. And I'm like,
hmm
oh, wow, I love this. Love it,
Okay.
love it.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah. So I think there's things leading up to it, but I didn't really realize I was a writer until I talked to the publisher.
Okay.
So,
hmm
and I'm still a work in progress.
Yeah. Oh, who isn't? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who isn't a work in progress?
Yeah.
What's some of the best advice that you could give someone that feels that passionate about writing like you do? Let's say they have these stories or they have something they want to put together and write a book. So what are some of the steps or some advice you can give them to take the steps into doing that?
Yeah, I think it's hard because it's different for everybody, right? So, I talk to writers who are like, I can only write in the morning. That's the only time and for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was evenings when everybody was in bed. I didn't have all these distractions. And I'll tell you, being 50 plus doing this and staying up until 2, 3, 4 in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and then going to bed and sleeping for a couple hours and waking up and having to work or whatever. Oh yeah, it's different than when I was in undergraduate and
I
able to
bet.
pull off that. But what I would say is just the big thing for me, I feel like, was that I I didn't know what setting intentions was years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like by writing down my ideas of what I wanted for my stories,
Mm-hmm.
uh, writing that down, telling people I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write that book. I will write that book. I mean, I probably sounded like a freaking broken record, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel
But
like,
that's a great intention to set. I mean, that's what you're kind of like you're manifesting something and you're like, no, I might not write a book. I'm going to write this
I'm
book.
going to write a book.
Yes,
Yes, I
you
will
you
write
kept
that
you
book.
stuck with yep, that's what you I hope, not I wish you were I'm writing this book, period.
Yeah. And it's
Yep.
funny because you have people that hear you say it and then get messages from them when you're writing that book. So they hold
Mm.
you accountable.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then, the other thing too that I feel like was really, really poignant was that I don't know, like years ago, because I kept saying I'm going to do this, but I always wondered, like, how do you publish and how do you do all these things, right? I feel like back then I wasn't meant to write it back then. I
Mm,
feel like I met the right people. People were put into my life that
mm,
had these resources and had like, they already like, everybody struggles with believing in themselves. So don't
sure.
get me wrong on
Yeah.
this, but I feel like they were a couple steps ahead of me with it. There's still that little voice going, well, do you really want to do that? Like, but having those people believe in me that I could do this was like
hmm
amazing. So I don't know, maybe I could have written it years ago, but I wouldn't have quite as many stories either.
Well, it's all about the like timing too. Like you said, maybe you weren't meant to write it back then and
Yeah,
this was your time and here
yeah,
you are. So,
yeah,
that's perfect. That's
yeah.
perfect. So I'm
So
so
that's
glad that
the
you
advice that I would give people. Just
yeah.
write down, tell people, like just knowing that you'll do it. Just say you're gonna do it. And
hmm
then start writing. Like find like for some people they don't like the NaNoWriMo month because they feel like that's too much pressure.
hmm
For me, I found it very rewarding because it kind of got me started and really thinking on my structure and how I wanted to put things together. And
Mhm.
Um, and it didn't mean that I had to finish it in that month. It just gave me a really great starting
Mhm.
point. So
And the great thing too is that you share your talents and your wisdom with doing the writing. I know I was on one of your virtual like seminars, and you taught or teach at the University of Wisconsin. So you're sharing your skill and your experience with other people. So do you see
yeah,
yourself doing more of that?
I see myself doing, yeah, definitely. I'm going to be, I'm getting more into the public speaking realm of things. I'm going to be
Yeah.
doing a presentation for the Lake Superior writers up here in Duluth in
Mhm.
November, talking about, how NaNoWriMo helped me to kind of get started. So I'm going to share a little bit of that. But yeah, I mean, I guess when the University of Wisconsin, the Green Bay reached out to me, they said, this isn't a paid gig, but we do
Mhm.
this adult learners thing. I always find that, like, for me personally, and this is a personal choice, I don't say no to a lot of those opportunities because you don't know what opportunity is going to flourish from that opportunity,
What it's
or
going to lead to, right?
who you're going to meet.
Right.
Um, some people may not like to go and do, I've talked to other writers and we're like kind of more introverted, believe it or
Mhm.
not. um, but you got to get yourself out there and you got to get in front of your audience or they don't know who you are. And
Right.
to meet in face to face with somebody, really, like, that's huge in this industry. And so, but I find this like passion to help other writers because there's so many questions. There a lot
Mhm.
of writers are in the place where I was years ago, where I went, I want to write this book. I'm going to write this book, but how do you find a publisher? How do you,
Right.
like, market, or how do you, all those like kind of unknowns.
Mhm.
Through my networking with networking groups and stuff like that and other writer groups, I'm getting these connections with publishers and
Mhm.
marketing people and public relations. I, so with my Finding the Funny Inc. Humor Writers Network, I want to bring those professionals to the to the writers so that way they
Yes.
can ask them questions on all
Mhm.
different sorts of things and get those answers, and then be able to maybe reach out to that person if they have more questions. So
Mhm.
um, I just want to see, especially women writers, I want to see them succeed. And you know if I can kind of bridge that gap,
Yeah.
uh, I don't know. I just feel like it's really important for me to not keep those secrets, right?
No,
Like we
no,
all want to,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think when we get to a certain age, and why we kind of, founded this, the Lines of Turbulence, is that we get to a certain age and we feel a little, nervous about doing something new, or living out a dream that you've had for quite some time, and how to, get the wheels going to put it forward, or, put that, to work. So I think it's great that you're doing that for women, and especially the women writers, and because a lot of them, may not even know where to begin. I'm sure they don't even know where to begin. Like you said, you found all of this through networking, your publishers and other people, and a lot of people don't even know where to even start with something like that. They have a great idea. They probably have a manuscript that's phenomenal, but don't know how to get it out there. So
Mhm, mhm.
really grateful for you for doing that, and giving them those tools is amazing. So
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I find is, like, not everybody's meant to write a book, or not everybody wants to write a book, right? Maybe
right.
they just want to do blogging, or
Mm,
maybe they just want to write their stories for their kids to have.
yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of value to that as well. And so the
Yeah.
classes that I taught for University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, those folks, they're not sure that they would ever want to write a book, but they really like wanted to kind of get back into writing and learn about writing structure. And I'm no
Mm,
expert at it, right? I mean, some people might say, well, you wrote a book, so you are an expert. But I feel like we're always growing and we're always learning. But I had enough of the kind of foundational things to bring to them, and also like bringing in that humor. How do you put this humor spin on those stories?
mhm,
And so just like encouraging people to write their stories or their
mhm.
loss, right? So you
Yeah.
fade away and your family like wants to learn things about you. And I feel like if you write your stories, that they have
Mhm.
those. Like I have my dad's book. I was asked by someone, are you gonna publish it? I said, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, but maybe I'll just leave it as it is in its raw form. Just
Yeah.
as like just such a treasure. So
Yeah.
mhm.
I love that. So, it's talking about some other things. We'll go towards like the 50 plus after 50, get into that subject as well. So, on Laugh Island and Turbulence. So, well, also I wanted to bring back to like your humor too. So your humor, hilarious. I just remember the first time that we met or we started working together that it was just we were always laughing. It was just a bunch of laughs all the time. And you're someone who lights up a room. You made work so bearable because of your humor. Like you were just a ray of sunshine.
You were
um,
too.
and some of the humor was like mischievous, the jokes that we played and stuff. So, but man, I found my soulmate with you.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So I greatly appreciate your sense of humor, your you finding, things you find the simplest things funny, which is great. So it just makes life so much more bearable. I'm telling you.
It
So I'm
does. Well,
so grateful to them.
I was telling you just earlier, we've had like the last month has been crazy for us, with
Yeah, yeah.
a sick family member, all this stuff. And
Mhm.
today it just seemed like everything was unraveling, even though it's been unraveling. But today it was
Yeah.
like this whole new like bucket of like crap, right? and and I'm so lucky to have a husband that can laugh at this stuff with me, and or shake
Yes, yes,
our heads,
yeah,
and we know like, okay, this is a new story for another book,
yeah, yeah.
but just to be able to, I mean, we were laughing today, we're like, oh my gosh, like there's nothing more we can do at this point but just laugh
Right.
at these crazy things that are happening. So
No, yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a great mindset. That's a totally great mindset to have. And I think that is such in your marriage. I mean, and that's another thing, such a great, I always admired your marriage, you and Paul, because, you guys just kind of go with the flow and, times get hard and stuff like that, but he has a sense of humor and he's very laid back. So the two of you together are such a great example of a wonderful married couple who, go through so much together, but yeah, you guys have been through a lot, but you
mhm.
guys stick it out and you have such a strong marriage because of the way you handle life. You don't take it so seriously and you just kind of you take it as it comes.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. Like humor is so important. It's so healing, it's so
Mm,
therapeutic. There's studied so many studies, and I'm not even going to sit and talk about them because I don't have them on hand. But I've done a lot
mm,
of reading, and I did a certification in humor therapy, and it's just amazing, just the power
mm.
that laugh, a good belly laugh. We used to laugh all the time as kids, and as adults
Yeah.
rarely laugh. And so we've got all these stressors coming at us, right? And
Mhm.
um so I don't know. And I have times where I get stressed out, like a little bit ago when
Yeah.
I get the internet running.
It's
And
always
I'm like losing
technology.
my mind. And you're like, it's all
I know.
right.
Everybody knows that you should know that Gina and I always have a technology issue whenever it
Always.
comes to putting one of our episodes out. It's always something. The internet's not working or we can't get the thing to work or something, but it's all
Yeah.
right. It's
Yeah.
our
So
thing.
I'm not
So,
perfect. Like I do have like a lot of those stories. I was losing my
mhm,
ever loving mind during some of those. And
mhm.
but you know, I think a lot of it was taking a step back after it happened and
Yeah.
going, oh my gosh, like how on earth did that happen? And then being able to like find the
Mhm,
funny, find the, you know, the cliche, make lemon or
mhm,
lemonade out of lemons type of thing. So,
mhm,
mm,
mhm. And also you're such a what I wanted to put. I don't know if everybody knows that you also do social work.
yeah.
You're a social worker, and you're extremely empathetic too. Like you
Mhm.
are very in tune to people's feelings, which I also admire about you too. You're very,
Mhm.
you're very emotionally and empathetically connected to people. So that is something else that I really admire about you.
Thank you.
And yeah, and so just going on the things that you've accomplished, become a social worker, you started writing. What else, Gina? What else do you want to do?
Well,
What else is on your list?
you know, I'll tell you what. So I was thinking about this earlier. It's crazy that you're asking that. But before I turned 50, my goal was to, by the age of 50, run a half marathon. And I wanted it to be the Disney Princess half marathon. And I wanted to run it in honor of my mom. My mom loved Disney.
Mhm.
And I don't know what it was about. I've got to run this half marathon. I lost my mind right before I turned 50. I'll blame it on menopause. But I did it. It was another thing that I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Um, Once I did it, I'm like, I don't know that I'll ever do that again. But the next morning I woke up and I kept, you know, doing races. I don't, gosh, I'm having a hard time. I've always wanted to do the Dopey Challenge at Disney. And so it's 5 races. Five, let me think. No, it's 4 races. Sorry. So it's a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, and a full marathon 4 days in a row.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's a lot of miles. It's very, I've never ran a full marathon, so I would imagine it to be very painful. But you get 6 medals. Like it's all this bling, right?
Mhm. You're so competitive. Look at you. Hey, you're like you challenge yourself, and you're like, hey, I want these
Dopey challenge.
medals, and I want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the funny thing is like I always think, you know, I want to do the dopey challenge and then I'll like start running again because
Yeah.
I've fallen out of it so much since COVID. And I'll get
Mhm.
out there and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna set this goal and then I'll like start walking and I'll like do a little jog and I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
Lord, like I can't even get through this 1 mile.
So,
So we'll
and that comes along with the after 50 stuff. So going right into segueing into some of the physical and mental challenges that
yeah.
you have faced after turning 50. So what are some of the things that may have surprised you? Some of the things that maybe you're like, wake up one day and you're like, what the heck is this? So I mean, tell us some of the physical and mental challenges that you think you faced after turning
Yeah.
50.
I think it's kind of crazy because I had everything, I think, morphed into one. So Paul had a stroke a number of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then COVID happened, you know, a couple of years later. Then I didn't realize at that time that I was probably going through perimenopause.
Mm-hmm.
I was having all like these crazy, like weird things happening, but you know, and then the weight gain started coming on, and I'm like, what the heck? And you know, I've got my coworker, which she's probably right about some of it, but she's like, you know, with all the stress you've been under, it's
Yeah.
probably like, you know, that's probably what's causing some of this.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you know, you're not running anymore because, you know, when COVID happened,
Right.
I did a couple races. I signed up for half marathons and I wore that bib proudly through my town, running 13 miles through town, back and forth, up and down streets. And I felt like a complete idiot. And I didn't get bananas or cheering or nothing. So it wasn't worth it to me anymore. So, but anyway, so I had all this like stuff that kind of, I think, transformed at the same time. Looking back,
Yeah.
I see that I was probably going through perimenopause at the same time all this other stuff was happening.
Mhm.
I think the biggest, like the craziest, like wow moment, and I explained it the other week ago, but like I was laying on the couch watching TV with Paul, we're watching TV and all of a sudden I got this hot flash
Mhm.
and like I went on
Yeah.
fire and I'm like, what the heck? And it's funny because my mom never talked about menopause at all.
Mhm.
Never,
Mhm.
never. I'd watch her like turn really beat red and sweat. And I'm like, what the
Mhm.
heck is wrong with you? You
Yeah.
kind of, that's weird. But she never talked about any of that stuff. But I
Mhm.
had a really good friend, Julie, Larson, and she was already having those symptoms. And she's like,
Mhm.
I'm like, I can eat anything and I never gain any weight. She's like, you just wait. I'm like, yep, that's probably just you. I don't know. Like that'll be fine
Right.
when you get older. And then the same with hot flashes. Like she'd want to go lay in a snowbank. I'm like, you're nuts. I'm freezing. And she's like, one day. Well, she's since passed. She ended up with breast cancer and passed. But
Mhm.
she kept saying, you come back to me when you have your hot flashes. You come back and you apologize and tell me you were right. So
Mhm.
you were right, Julie.
Isn't it funny
Totally.
how we? Isn't it funny how we kind of like I think it's a combination of like our moms really didn't talk about it, and that's like probably going to be a whole nother episode that we're going to discuss
Yeah.
some of our menopause and some other changes that we go through that our parents that our mothers have never, or aunts or grandmothers or whomever, never really
Yeah.
talked about with us,
Mhm.
and or we don't believe it. Like we see our older friends or some, like you said, you saw your mom getting red and
Yeah.
going through a hot flash, so it's kind of funny how we somehow don't think it's going to happen to us. Like we feel in that moment so immortal, kind
Yeah.
of. We feel immortal, like no, I can never foresee myself ever not feeling the way I feel right now. I can't ever foresee myself, because I get cold or because of whatever. Yeah, I'm active. I eat right. I can never foresee myself suffering from any of these symptoms, but yet not long later, here we are suffering from these symptoms. So
Yeah.
it's funny how like we had a combination of our parents didn't tell us any. I mean, our mothers didn't tell us anything. Our aunts, our grandmothers, and even when we saw them going through stuff, we're like, maybe there's something just wrong with them. Maybe they're just not eating right. Maybe they're just not diet. Maybe they're just this, they're that. But yeah,
Yeah. It's crazy.
it's yeah, menopause is like that. That legend. Like when we're in our 30s and our 40s, the legend of menopause.
Right. Yeah. So Julie
you
was
know,
the only one who talked to me about it. And so,
yeah.
yeah, I didn't believe her. But, like looking back now, I'm like, I'm so grateful that she did talk to me. Like, and
Yeah.
it wasn't like we sat down and I'm going to tell you about menopause, it wasn't,
Mhm.
she's just this like sharing her
You knew more from her than anybody else.
Yeah. And she was funny.
And-
Like, and so now I can laugh with her. I'm still laughing
Mhm.
with her.
Yeah.
From above, she's probably going, I told you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Well, here we are with it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, let's see here. What else we're going to talk about? Your priorities, and have they changed in the last, since you've turned 50?
Oh my
Is it
gosh. They
different?
have.
Yeah.
They have. And, I think a lot of it is this urgency. Um,
Hmm.
you know, People hear this statement all the time, we're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Right.
And nothing screamed that faster. I mean, you have, your elders who pass away and different things like that. But, um, I hear stories of people who lose somebody at an early age or,
Hmm.
they're just suddenly here and then they're gone.
Right.
Um, I really like have this urgency to do the things in life that I really want to set out to do. Um,
Hmm.
I have this urgency to want to make a difference in our world. And even if it's just one story at a time or one giggle at a time, I know that when I wrote the book, And I had a girlfriend that reached out to me and said, her mom's been very sick for a long time and she bought a copy of the book for her mom. And she reached out
Yeah.
to me and said, Gina, like, I haven't seen my mom laugh in a long time. And I'm watching her sit on her
Mm.
porch and she's giggling while she's reading. And I just
I
like,
love that. Yeah.
Deb, like that,
I love that.
I didn't do the writing thing to like earning money. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But that was never the intention for me writing the book. It always was wanting to just bring a smile to people and heal our world.
Yeah.
And just by hearing people reach out to me, and I read it, the stories are very readable for,
Oh,
for kids. Hey,
yeah.
where'd you go?
I know. Gosh,
Hey,
my phone
folks,
dropped. I'm so sorry.
this is our technology.
I have, go ahead.
Yeah, but traveling to the places that I want to
Mhm.
get to, and which I've done a lot of that. I traveled to Switzerland, which the
Oh,
Swiss, the
yeah.
Swiss Alps, and that was on the top of my bucket list, and it was
Mhm.
amazing the peace that set into my soul after I did that trip.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and I want to leave a legacy for my family. I just,
Mhm.
I want my kids to always have a piece of me when I'm gone.
Ah,
And
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I look at
I,
that book that my dad wrote, and I'm like, holy cow, like I'll always have this, you know.
ah. Do you feel that you got your gift from your dad, the writing gift from your dad, or was he someone who liked to write and was very interested?
No, he really, no, but I have the entrepreneurial spirit from my dad. Like he was always
Okay.
trying different things. Like he had this thing called uh World on a String. And he got all these people to buy into this thing, World on a String, and he had the prototype drawn out. He got the patent and
Okay.
everything. I don't know if he got the patent. I don't know. But I remember it being this big thing. And he had his prototype made. And so it was just this crazy like globe hanging from a string. He got
Uh-huh.
like he bought a globe and he hooked it up to a string and he put a magnet at the bottom of the globe and then he put a magnet on the base and so it like levitated with the string, right?
This is, yeah.
But here's the thing, like I was doing my social work. um my dad was onto something, but I don't know what happened that he didn't follow it all the way through. But I was doing my social work internship and the guy that was doing, supervising my clinical hours, he had one, but it didn't
Yes.
have the string. It was
Right.
just,
It's so fun. Yes, because it's funny you're saying that because as you're telling me this, I was at a gift shop on one of my overnights and I thought it was the coolest thing. You're
yeah,
right. It was like a globe on a magnetic base and it turned and
yeah.
something. And it's kind of funny.
That's my dad's
Yeah,
invention.
it's funny as you're telling me the story. I'm like, oh my God, I've seen this thing. And I thought it was so cool. It was super neat. Like, it's so funny how that was like your dad came up with that idea, which is hilarious.
It's crazy. I wish that day that Dan showed me that thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I wish my dad was here because I would have been
Yeah.
like, what the heck? What? But that, and then also his sense of humor. My dad was so
Yeah, that's
funny,
what you're
always
saying.
laughing about stuff. And
Mhm.
my mom would roll her eyes or get really embarrassed by like some of the things he would do and say.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I think that, and just from both of my parents, I think that, just that lightheartedness and being able to
Yeah.
laugh at, you know,
Yeah.
it- what are you going to do? Like if something happens, like you have a choice. You can get mad, you can, cry, you can whatever. Sometimes you might do all of that, but you
Yeah.
have a choice to and how you look at it and how
Mhm.
you move forward with it.
Yeah. 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 You have a choice of how you're going to, what are you going to make of it? Kind
Yeah.
of, are you going to let it defeat you? Are you going to, you know,
Yeah.
uh, see it as an opportunity instead of an obstacle. I don't know. Mindset is kind of everything with stuff like that. I feel
Yeah.
in a way. So,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, interesting. So, your kids, I just wanted to ask you because I know your kids. I mean, I know, well, I had my Katie and Michael and, Jackie, I mean, when she was younger and stuff like that. So what do you think, you know, I mean, they look up to you. You're setting such a great example for your children.
Yeah.
Um, how did they receive, like, when you wrote the book and when you said, I'm going to do this,
Yeah.
and you did it, and
Yeah.
you're like, and so
Ta-da!
how did your children I already know Paul, but how did your children you react, and what were their thoughts on something like mom did it, like mom did it and she
You
published her book, or
I have received, I know we've talked about like how people receive like what you're doing,
yeah.
how they talk to you about it. I have, I'm gonna turn this light a little bit because I feel like I'm getting
Mhm.
blinded. There we go. Um, I received so much like support from Paul. Like he
Mhm.
said, if there's anybody that can do this, I know you can do it. And he supported the cost of, because publishing isn't cheap.
Mhm.
Like I guess you can do self-publish. I didn't know even the first thing about doing any kind of publishing. So that scared me a lot, like to the
Right.
thought of trying to figure it out. I wanted someone to walk me through what I needed to do. And so and with that, you're paying that person to help you with those things. And so
Yeah.
um but he was so supportive, and the kids, like, they've wanted me to do this for, yeah, they kept saying my mom's going to write a book, she's going to write a book. And the thing
Oh, yeah.
like I've been asked like, well, what do they feel like about the stories, because they're in the stories, right?
Right.
Paul's in
Yeah.
the story. I mean, Paul's portrayed as Paul, like he just makes decisions and does things, and people, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just walked into that cornfield to get a couple of ears of corn and you ended up getting the wrong kind of corn. And I'm always like, I'm always the rule follower. You can't do that. The kids are always sitting in the background, observing the craziness of their parents.
Right.
But it's funny because as I was writing, I would read the stories to Katie. And then Jackie, she lives in Stevens Point, so she's a few hours from us. But when
Yeah.
I got the final like copy before it went to print, she came and
Mhm.
visited. She read through it,
Yeah.
and her compliment to me was so amazing. Mom, this is so great. You did such a great job.
Aw.
So, I'm so happy to be able to, leave this for them. And
Yeah.
I feel so blessed to have their support, my
Yes.
family, my whole family. The thing that they think I'm crazy is, and Paul keeps saying, no, you won't, is running that don't be challenge. No, you're not doing that. Because he probably knows how much I'm going to complain, and he's going to have to rub my feet and ankles and
Well,
stuff after.
we'll keep an eye out on on updates on your dopey challenge.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll encourage you and support you for your dopey challenge.
Yeah. I want to do that before I'm 60, or at least by the time
There
I'm
we go.
60.
There we go. Do you hear us? You know what? That's interesting. We're like decade goals. By the time I'm 60, I want to accomplish this. By the time I'm 70, I want to accomplish that.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah,
So I think
yeah,
it's great to always set goals.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I think the other thing that I really want to do is I really want to, um, continue on my entrepreneur journey.
Yeah.
I'm loving all of this stuff. They say don't quit your day job, which I haven't,
Right.
which is a good thing. Or, I'd probably be like sitting in a box while you're interviewing me, um, on my
Uh,
lawn. But I want to continue, helping other writers. I want to
yeah.
continue the journey with Laugh Lines, and
Yes.
just like really leaving it, again, making a difference in the lives of other women, and, you know, carving this path and like bringing these issues of menopause, but you know, the funniness
Hmm.
and then goal setting, like all these women that are doing such amazing things in their 50s.
Yes. Yes.
I am in awe. I am in such awe, and I
Yep.
want to continue to highlight those folks. I think it's so
Hmm.
important. So,
I think it's phenomenal. Some of these women that are doing amazing things after 50 who are starting businesses and some other things. It's like, wow, like they never run out of ideas. They never run out of ideas. They never run out of, I don't even know what to cook every day, let alone, you know, I, I, I mean, I've run out of recipes, but they just don't run out of ideas at all. They come up
mm,
with new things and branch off other things. So I
yeah.
love listening to other women over 50 talk about what they've done, what they've accomplished, some
Mhm.
their goals that they've achieved. I love hearing about all that because it's so encouraging and empowering.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I know you had asked me like what my advice to women would be who want to write. I think my
Yeah.
advice to women who are, you know, approaching 50, like if you have a dream of something you really want to do not
Mhm.
give that up. Like
Right.
do that for you. It's so important. We give to everyone in our lives. I find
Yep.
because I am such an empath, you know, which
Yep.
is helpful in the field of social
Yes.
work and with friendships and whatever. But I feel
Yeah.
like it can be a hard thing too, because
Yes.
I take on that and it's like I take on, oh, okay, you need that. All right, I guess I got to put my this aside. And so I have to do that.
Mm,
And so I find myself in those patterns. So I've really been working, and again, we're all works in progress, right? So I've
mm,
been working on setting more boundaries, and sometimes it's easier
mm,
than other times, but I would say if you have a dream, like do it, pursue it. You got
mm,
so much to give to this world and like and to yourself.
mm. And having them believe in themselves because a lot of
Yeah.
times even we talked about that before, like you were saying, I think you had something coming up and you're like, oh my God, I'm going through major imposter syndrome right now. And it's like believing that you are worthy enough and that believing in yourself that you can do this because you can. If you have the idea in your head,
Yeah.
that's got to tell you something,
Yeah.
put that idea into action. So
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
what you did. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and find those supportive people, you know, like
Yeah. Okay.
again, I think there's so much to be said. You know, we've all watched the American Idol or the
Right.
America's Got Talent where somebody thinks they're all that in a nutshell and the coaches are trying to coach them or the judges are trying to help them by giving them suggestions, and you have to be open to people's
Mm,
suggestions. I know that there's like kind of a boundary with that too because you still
yeah.
want to do it, but but you know if there's people that are professionals in that industry, you know, take their advice. I feel
Yeah.
like by taking writing classes during the process I learned the language and I learned. So when my publisher sent me back edits, it was easier to digest because that book is your baby. And so you're like, this
Yeah.
is thing. Oh my gosh, why would you like give the suggestion? You know, otherwise, I didn't think that when she sent me the edits, but I
Hmm.
think it's because I was able to take those writing classes and learn that language of like, we need more here,
Hmm.
or, you know, and not take it personally,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but take it as a stepping stone and a growing point. So
I love the way you put that. Like, don't take it personally. Be open to suggestions, especially people who've had experience and something like that. I love that because when we do get older, sometimes we get set in our ways and
mhm.
we have a little bit, the thinking, we start, and I don't know what happens when we get older, but we start to, the box that we think out of starts to get a little smaller for some reason.
Yeah, yeah.
And, we see everything a certain way. And I think, criticism does, we do take it more personally and stuff. So you're right. I think being, as we get older too, is just being open to more suggestions, like you said, with people that have experience and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's great
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, so here's our awkward silence.
Oh my gosh, our video with Angie last week, I was just like, I wish we got to figure out technology, but I don't know. But so no
I know.
promises to our viewers, but I
I know.
wish
Hey,
that moment of silence, like brain fog. I wish we could have like put like an alert, brain fog, brain fog. Because we all kind of just,
I know. So that she was she was so great. She was so
yeah,
phenomenal. I loved having her on, and
yeah,
she's really funny. She's great. But yeah, thank you, Gina. Thank you so much for
yeah.
all of your amazing advice and your amazing suggestions, and just being you, because I love you so much and you're so amazing.
You're my heart, lady. You are my heart.
Yes,
Oh,
and you are mine, and I couldn't see myself doing this with anybody else but you.
absolutely.
But yeah, I started jotting down some of your great quotes, but I know you're a great quote picker out of these interviews and stuff. So you had some really good ones in case you needed suggestions going over your own videos. So
If you're gonna be a picker, be a quote picker.
exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, and love you so much.
Love you too.
Okay,
And
and
thank
then
you to everybody. Thank you to everybody.
yeah,
And, share our stuff. We
yes,
want to help the world.
yes, we appreciate you all so very much. We even have cards made. We start
Yes.
sticking them all over the cork boards. I start handing them out, put them up. I'm in Sedona, Arizona, and Christina and I went over to some, I don't know, we went into some restaurant thingy, like in the middle of the woods and stuff. They had a cork board, which is so funny. They had this cork board, and Sedona is a very spiritual place. So this cork board that they had with everybody's cards on it was, you know, get your chakras aligned, get, yoga classes, meditation, and here's me sticking at least five of them. Left lines of turbulence, left lines of turbulence.
Good. Spread the word.
Yeah.
Sedona
Yeah, I
needs
know.
us.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. I was like, everything just looked so, such, this. And I'm a spiritual person, but it was just so funny. Like I'm like looking at, oh, get your chakras aligned, get your fortune told,
Then you see this wind person.
yeah, your aura's red, and I'm like, what is the turbulence?
That's great. I love it. All right.
Yeah. And Christina was so funny. A card fell on the floor, and I was gonna put it. She goes, excuse me. Would you have liked your card to fall on the floor and somebody put it down? I go, no, not at all. So I made sure I put it, on the side, but still stuck our
Yeah.
cards all over the place. So, but she was so funny. My daughter putting me in check. But anyway, all right, Gina, I loved interviewing you. Love you so much. Can't wait to
Me
post this.
too. Yeah.
And then
Celebrate.
everyone stay tuned for next week.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too.